This is a Europhile review of Java by Kiesling and Kramer. This is part of the Mask trilogy, and it was released in the year 2000. The Mask trilogy is a series of games, so called because of these masks on the box. The most well-known of those games is Tikal, which is still, I believe, is still in print and has its sequel, Tikal 2. There's also a game called Mexica. Java has been out of print for many years. It was released in the year 2000 and you won't see it in your local game store now. I'm not making this video as an attempt to entice people to go out to their game stores and buy this game, but perhaps it might intrigue people enough to hunt down a copy of this game, and it's not as hard to find as you might imagine. You can pick it up in trades, you can pick it up second-hand, but you might have to do some work to find it. It's well worth the effort. For my money, this is a better game than Tikal, which is a very good game in itself. I would say this is the best of the games in that series that I've played. Java is an action point allowance game where we develop a landscape and then we try and take control of the various territories within that landscape, building cities, building villages, building rice fields, adding irrigation, and placing your tokens to try and claim those areas. We also hold festivals, which has a sort of auction mechanic in it, all in order to score fame points or victory points. The first thing you'll notice about it is this lovely three-dimensional design to the tile laying, and these tiles are really, really thick. They're lovely thick tiles, and you can build these lovely three-dimensional landscapes that just look absolutely fantastic on the board. And this is more than just aesthetics. This actually has a gameplay function as well, because the person who is in control of these territories is likely to be the person who is highest, physically highest on the sort of mounds that build up. So people are incentivized to increase the height of the landscape in order to get higher than their opponents, and that's the central sort of idea of the game. Thematically speaking, we're exploring this sort of landscape of central Java. As I say, we're developing it. We're creating villages and rice fields and putting down irrigation and sort of developing a fertile landscape while trying to become the most powerful ruler by building these palaces to make the villages into cities and holding these festivals. The board is set up here with a three-player game in progress. At the start of the game, each player will be given a selection of tiles. So they'll have some of these ones, they'll have some of these single tiles, and they'll have some of the single rice field ones. They'll also have some tokens which allow them to take extra actions above the 6 that they're normally allowed on their turn. And they're going to have cards like this, which are used for bidding when you have a festival in a city. There is also a large stack of these 3-piece tiles which are available to everybody, and when these tiles run out, that's the end of the game. There's far more than I've got here. Many of them are on the board, and I've got some to the side here. You get a lot in this box, a lot of tiles. Perhaps that's what's holding them back from reproducing it, I don't know. On your turn, you have 6 action points available to you, and this little board demonstrates exactly what those action points do. So at the very top here, you'll see that for 1 action point, you can place a tile onto the board. That can be a single tile, a double tile, or one of the communal sort of treble tiles, and that could be placed anywhere on the board. So I could, for example, place a double tile from my own supply down here, hence turning this village into a 2-step village. That's our first action that's available to us. Our second action that's available is to move one of our tokens onto the board. So, for example, if this token was here, I could move him onto the board from the side, bring him onto here. That would cost me, well, in fact here I've moved it on from the mountain, so this is going to cost me 2 action points coming from a mountain, but it would cost me 1 action point if he had moved on over here from the sort of the grassland, the plains, onto there. We then have this ability to move. We can move our tokens as far as we like within a landscape type for no action points. So this guy, for example, he could move all the way around here. That would cost him no action points. It doesn't matter that he's gone up a level and come back down a level. What matters is that he's in the same terrain type. The same would be true if this guy wanted to move all the way down here. That would cost no action points to do. If we wanted to change terrain types, that would cost an action point. So if this guy decided to step down here and change from the city into the plains or the rice fields, then that would cost him an action point. We then have the ability to build a palace. Now, you can only build a palace in a city, and the palace has to be at least, the city has to be at least as big as the number of the palace that you're building, and they come in even numbers. So here we can see a level 10 palace, which is allowed because there are at least 10 spaces within that city. If I were to build a palace over here, it would have to be a level 2 palace, and I would need to have a worker in that area in order to do this. So I could place a level 2 palace in there, turning it into a city. Now, if there were 2 players in the same region, so for example here we have 2 orange and a white and a level 8 city here, well, that level 8 city can be increased to a 10. Increasing palace sizes costs 1 action point. In order to build a palace or to increase the height of it, you need to be on the highest level in the city comparative to other players. So this orange is at a higher level than this white. So the orange is allowed to build this city up, but the white is not. If the orange did decide to build the city up, they would have to place it at 10, because that's the next one after the 8 onto there. The next level, the next thing that we can do with our action points is to place an irrigation tile. Now there are already irrigation spaces illustrated on the board, and you can see one here that's been completely surrounded. If I wanted to place an irrigation tile, I could do so. I could place an irrigation tile in here, for example. That would cost me 1 action point. If we had a situation where that irrigation tile was entirely surrounded, then any adjacent coloured token would score 3 points immediately for surrounding that tile. If there were 2 tokens adjacent of different colours, then the token on the higher level would score the points. So it's always a benefit to be higher than your opponents. The next thing that you can do with your action points is you can take a card. You can do this up to twice in a turn. So that would mean taking another of these bidding cards, which help you score points when you come to have festivals in a city, which we'll go on to. So this is the final thing that the card shows us, is that you can have a festival. Now this has to be the last thing that you do in your turn. And it doesn't cost you any activation points. Now, anybody in a city can have a festival. They don't have to be on the highest level in order to do so. So this guy could have a festival on his turn, this guy could have a festival on his turn. You can only have a festival if it hasn't already happened while the palace is at that level. So if this 10 was on the white, that means there has been no festival there yet. So red could have a festival. If he does so, he has to play a card which matches the currently showing festival card. So we might have something like this showing currently as being, this is the icon or the image that you have to match when you have a festival. So red might say, well, I'm going to bid one card that matches that image. And then orange might say, well, I'll also bid one card. Red says, well, you know, I've got another one actually. So I'm going to bid a second card with that image on. This one actually has that image and another one. So I'm bidding a second card. Orange then says, well, actually, I don't have any more. So orange is out of that festival scoring. Now, in this instance, we're having a festival on a level 10 palace. So on a level 10 palace, if you win that festival outright, that bidding, you get 5 points. If you end up drawing it, you have 3 points each. Okay, so that's what these scores show. Another way to score points is when you build these palaces or increase the height of them in the first place, you get half the points. So when that goes up from whatever it was previously, so supposing that this had previously been an 8, and then red turns that into a 10, he would score 5 points straight away. And so that's how the game goes. You use your action points. If you want to take extra actions, you have a couple of these tokens which you can use to just once in the game to take an extra action point on your turn. And the game continues until we've used up all the three-piece tiles. At the end of the game, one slight oddity with this game, and it's similar in TCAL actually, is that the player who ends the game then scores for his current position, and he wants to be close and high, close to the various palaces in order to score the maximum points from them. Then the next player will have a full turn before he does his scoring. So he can rectify his position and even climb into a higher position than the person who's already scored, hence scoring more points. And then the next player will be able to do the same again. They will have a turn before they do their scoring. So we have a sort of staged scoring, which feels slightly odd because that's not how it happens in most games. Most games at the moment that come out tend to be, you know, the game ends, everybody scores. But here, the game ends for each individual player at a slightly different point. And that's quite refreshing, actually. It works very well. Java, for me, is a serious game, you know, a proper, heavy strategy game. And that does mean that it can take quite a while to think about your moves. I'm not particularly, I don't think, maybe you don't know, I'm not particularly somebody who is prone to analysis paralysis. I tend to, you know, just make the best choice that I can quite quickly and try and get on with it, which means I often don't win. But I have had other players who've spent a long time thinking about their turns when playing this game, and that can slow things down. It doesn't feel like a big problem in the game. It feels like that's kind of right. That is kind of the way it should be played. It is a game where you really think about your strategies. So I'm not convinced that that's a problem, but it is something to be aware of if you like, you know, games that just bang, bang, bang get through your turns. This isn't necessarily one of those. It's, as I've mentioned several times, it's part of a trilogy. It comes along with TCAL and Mexica, that's the Mask trilogy. I haven't played Mexica, but I have played TCAL, and I would say that this is a superior game. I did like TCAL very much, but I don't really feel any particular desire to own TCAL having played Java, because Java does everything that I need from that type of game. The action point allowance system is great. I like the sort of the break that you get in the game when you go onto that card bidding, which feels slightly out of place, but it's also kind of refreshing at that point in the game to be doing something slightly different. And it's the only bit of real almost randomness in the game is well, randomness when you draw the cards, certainly, but that bidding, you know, not quite knowing what's going to happen. The rest of the game is all very open for you to see and to plan. Another game in the same sort of vein from the same designers is Torres, which is a more sort of abstract game, but again playing with levels and height and territory sort of control. I tend to think of Java like a kind of older brother to something like Kingdom Builder. Kingdom Builder is a simple, light territory control game, but you have these different types of terrain. You have that lovely map with the hexes, and you're positioning yourself in order to score the points in the most appropriate place. Kingdom Builder is a much lighter, much simpler game, but if you enjoyed Kingdom Builder and you think, actually I want to go to the next level, or maybe a couple of levels up, then I think Java is a good game to do that. It's such a shame that it's been out of print for so long. It really shouldn't be the case. It's one of the best games that I have in my collection. Everybody I've played it with has enjoyed it and admired it. Those components are stunning. The board just looks stunning at the end of the game, and it's that gradual build-up that's so effective. It's like a stop-motion sort of picture of a developing landscape, a developing sort of cities and plains. You know, that's lovely stuff, and really immersive. You know, although this is by no means a thematic game, there's no theme here at all, but it is atmospheric and immersive, and it's lovely to watch that environment build. Java is a great game. Try and get your hands on it if you can. I can't help you with that. I didn't find it long to hunt it down, and eventually tracked it down, you know, secondhand on the Board Game Geek marketplace, and hopefully you'll have the same sort of luck. But yeah, if you like the look of it, I'd say it's well worth an effort to try and find that game. So that's Java.